Good morning, everybody. This is Pastor Rick, Broadman Baptist Church. This is the Broadman Word for June 10th, 2022. And today's title is Triumph Out of Tragedy. And it centers around a lot of what we see today and our feelings about what's going on and trying to make sense of everything. You know, there's so much upheaval and violence, and things seem to go from normal to agitated to violent so fast. Things don't seem to be able to be talked out, or there's no simmering time on anything. It's just boom, and usually violent, and particularly with gun violence now, we see it all the time. And there's tragedies everywhere. The recent shootings in Texas is just one of another long line of grotesque human tragedies brought about by evil people intending to do nothing but commit harm. And so, what do we do? What's the Christian response to this? And I would like you to consider, as part of how you feel about this and how you relate Christianity to these times that we're in, and particularly these violent acts, is that sometimes God allows things to happen to draw people to Him, or to accomplish some other work in the kingdom that is spurred on by the event. One particular thing would be the martyrdom or murder of Stephen. We learn about this in the book of Acts. He was murdered for preaching the gospel. He wouldn't stop even though he was told to. It was just that important for people to know and hear and come to the Lord. But through his persecution, his murder and the persecution of the Jews, they were scattered. They were sent out, lots of them, to all kinds of places. Even Samaria, which would have been a place very looked down on, very outcast. Samaritans, definitely outsiders and thought low of by the Jewish population. They wouldn't have just gone there. But as part of this scattering, this persecution, the tragedy of Stephen's death and the persecution of the church that came with it, lots of folks were scattered to lots of people. And even to Samaria, Philip went there, even though he would have not wanted to go at all, would have very much not wanted to go to Samaria or even have anything to do with any Samaritans. And it was dangerous for him to be there. The Samaritans weren't any more fond of the Jews than the Jews were of them. Centuries of conflict and being kept out of Jewish society. So, out of this tragedy, though, the gospel was taken to many nations. People understood the church. They understood their role in the church. They understood the need to spread the gospel. They understood that they had to go. They couldn't stay in Jerusalem anymore. People were now, Stephen was the first martyr of the church. So previously it was just, aggression and some jailings and persecution, uncomfortableness. But now people are actually being killed. One of us has now been killed, and killed for the gospel. So they had to go. They had to leave. And it is through that tragedy, though, that the gospel was taken to all parts of the known world, and churches were founded. People came to know the Lord. People became enamored with the gospel, and it spread, and it kept growing and spreading and growing and spreading. And pretty soon we had a real movement on our hands. A Christian revolution was going on right there. And so people understood their need for God. They understood their need for unity as a church in under God. They understood the need to spread the gospel, and they understood Jesus. So they used these understandings to go out and do the work of the kingdom. In these tragedies that we see, could it be possible that God is allowing some of this to happen because people need to cling to Him? We need to be shocked and scared by what we see so that we will then seek Him for comfort, seek Him for answers. And in this seeking, we would find Him, hopefully new members of the church, new heirs to the kingdom would come, and we would have a revolution not unlike we had the revolution born out of tragedy way back in the time of Acts. And it's not the only time God has used some disaster or some uncomfortable situation to bring people to Him or to send them out for work that needed to be done. So in order to keep our sanity, in order to make sense of any of this, in order for us to be able to hold our head high as Christians and be clear-eyed and straight about all this, we need to be able to make some kind of progress in the kingdom. We need to be able to take the events of the world, which are so numerous and so hard to see, particularly when it involves little children. We need to be able to take that and use it as catalyst for ourselves to grow closer to God and to cling to God and to each other as a church and to reinforce what we need to do. But moreover, we need to use it as a way to explain to the world why we need a prevalence of God, because God-filled hearts, while not perfect, don't commit these sorts of tragedies. So if we had a wider scope to our mission, if we had more intentional, intensive, and purposeful evangelism of these sorts of folks, if we had homes that were filled with scripture and community and love, as God says for us to have, we wouldn't have these kinds of things. Back in a time in America where we were very much a church-centered, family-centered, community-centered people, these things didn't happen. It's not that evil or bad didn't happen, but it didn't happen like this. And it didn't happen as often as this. So as we have, as a society, pushed God out farther and farther, the holes left behind, evil has filled in. And so that's where we are. So, triumph through tragedy. The only way to make these tragedies mitigated, the only way to see our way through them, the only way we can, as a community, the Christian community, the children of God, the only way we can stand firm and claim God's love is to use these tragedies to further the kingdom, to further God's love, to put it places where it hasn't previously been, to move it deeper and farther than it has currently gone, so that we can show the world that hearts filled with God don't do these things, and that our communities can be safer, certainly through some secular things that we can do, but mostly because we've returned to God. Listen, I love you. I hope you have a marvelous day. I'll talk to you next time.